Good morning, everyone. So we will be discussing about the English history of Finland. This is an overview of the language situation in Finland, an officially bilingual country in Northern Europe. The national languages, Finnish and Swedish, have equal status, guaranteed in language legislation since 1922. During the 19th century, however, Swedish was still the language of the elite while Finnish was the language of the common people. Therefore, the main accomplishment during the 19th century was the rapid development of the Finnish language into a language of education and administration after Finnish was accorded official status in 1863. The beginning of independence in 1917 witnessed a number of language conflicts that gradually subsided and led to a long stable period between the languages. In the 1980s, the linguistic situation changed again in many ways. The former immigrant country became an immigrant country, even though immigrant minorities in Finland are still small compared with, for example, other Nordic countries. Immigration has created a situation where there are several established linguistic minorities. In the 1990s, the status of linguistic minorities was improved through a number of legislative and educational reforms, and in 2001, proposals for the new Language Act and the Saami Language Act were written. Simultaneously, the status of Finnish has changed somewhat, and in 1995, Finland joined the European Union. Internationalization and globalization have become a part of Finnish society, and the role of English in business, education, media, and science has become more accentuated than ever before. In this new situation, the future of Finnish as well as the other national language, Swedish, is discussed from the viewpoint of less widely used languages in globalizing world. The rapid transformation evolves for Finland from a culturally homogeneous primarily agriculture society into an urban, industrialized society, increasingly open to influences from the West, has given rise to a range of critical responses. The song by a Finnish rock artist cited above is a good example of such critique. It not only explicitly criticizes the changes taking place in Finnish society but also comments on them in a more indirect and subtle way, illustrated partly in its language choices. For example, the lyrics build up a contrast between an old but slightly modified proverb, "You shouldn't buy a pig in a poke," in such English words as milkia, which is milk, and blackia, which is black. The juxtaposition of the old agrarian proverb and the morphologically domesticated English words conveys the sense of bafflement felt by many Finns in the face of the changes taking in society. In addition, this language uses nicely illustrate the social linguistic change taking place in Finland, whereby English, traditionally studied as one among other foreign languages, is gaining ground in everyday lives of many people, and typically reactions to this change. For example, the song indirectly questions why anyone would want to refer to such thoroughly mundane substance as milk with an English term when a perfectly acceptable Finnish word exists. And yet, for many people, such uses of English are becoming increasingly functional or evocative as means for communication. Okay, and the presence of English has indeed grown steadily from the beginning of the 20th century. Along with its increased visibility, its status has changed dramatically. The period from the 1960s to the 1980s, a period of major social, cultural, and economic change, was particularly important in this process. In the early 1960s, English was primarily regarded as a foreign language, almost exclusively for use in communication with foreigners. And by the 1980s, it had become a language that practically everyone studied at some point during their schooling. And by the 2000, English had become not only an indispensable vehicular language in international interactions, but also a language used in many domains and settings within Finnish society, either as an intergroup language or as an additional language alternating and mixing with Finnish or Swedish. And the increased impact of English on communicative practices has not gone unnoticed within Finnish society. Indeed, it has provoked a great deal of discussion and debate, both among language professionals and general public. And in these discourses, it has often been depicted in explicitly negative terms, and it's seen by some of threat comparable to a destructive nature force or a disease, threatening to corrupt or obliterate the national language or languages and culture. Debates of this kind often recycle protectionist value judgments, adapting arguments from more general discourses related to English as a global language. On the other hand, English has also been seen in public discussions as a positive force, regarded as an agent of progress and empowerment that is absolutely indispensable for Finns if they are to interact in a credible way with the world outside Finland's borders. We have here um, the language situation in Finland. So since in 1992, Finland has been an officially bilingual country with two national languages, Finnish and Swedish. Out of the 5.3 million citizens, 90.7% speak Finnish as their first language and 5.4% speak Swedish. There are also several minority languages, including three different Sami languages, Romani and the Finnish Sign Language, and each of which has considerably lower number of um, first language users. So, for instance, only 0.3% of the population speaks Sami as their mother tongue. And it is statistic Finland in 2010. However, many of the speakers of these minority languages are bilinguals, having either Finnish or Swedish as their first language. So Finland is gradually becoming a multilingual society, according to the Ministry of Justice in 2008. 120 languages are currently spoken in the country. During the last 20 years, the number of foreign language speakers has steadily increased. In 2009, speakers of Russian made up the largest group with 52,000 first language speakers, comprising up to 25% of a foreign language speakers. Speakers of Estonian formed the second largest group with 24,000 speakers, while speakers of English 12,000 came in third place statistics, according to the Statistics Finland in 2008. In Finland, these figures clearly show that the immigration of English speakers into the country is not the primary cause of increased presence and impact of English in Finland. Rather, we must look at the interplay of the number of factors. So we also have here the spread gradual spread of English and globalizing post-war Finland. So the growing significance of English in Finland is indeed an effect of several factors bound with more general changes in post-war in Finland. In parallel with increasing globalization, these factors include modernization, urbanization, ethnicalization, and internalization within society as a whole rather. All of this having impacts on business, trade and working life, as well as important educational reforms led to more effective foreign language teaching. New channels of information technologies and cross-border cultural flows became more evident. Also significant was a changed political situation after the Second World War. And there was a gradual but a distinct turn towards the Western world, along which Finnish um, society became more open to European and American values, politics, and culture. With the English language as a symbol of modern westernization, in addition to these influences, the role of English has been shaped by the linguistic homogeneity of the country. Despite the fact that Finland is officially bilingual and has several minority languages. In practice, the linguistic foundation of the country has largely been monolingualism. The majority of Finnish-speaking Finns have been able to manage by using only their first language in all areas of life. And most Swedish-speaking Finns are proficient in English. Um, Swedish-speaking Finns are proficient in Finnish